Welcome everyone. Today we are going to be talking about the 15th Amendment of the American Constitution and how the Republicans can actually be sued under it. If you haven't heard, the Republican governors and such have signed a number of bills into law that are stopping mail-in ballots, disenfranchising a number of voters, as in millions of voters, from voting via mail and such. The 15th Amendment, granting African American men the right to vote, was adopted into the US Constitution in 1870. Despite the amendment by the late 1870s, discriminatory practices were used to prevent black citizens from exercising their right to vote, especially in the South. It wasn't until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that legal barriers were outlawed at the state and local levels. If they denied African Americans their right to vote under the 15th Amendment. So basically, the Republican Party can be taken to the Supreme Court and then watch them try and recover from this. Those who are allying themselves with Donald Trump and pushing the big lie that Donald Trump won the 2020 election, which, again, that is false and misleading information, and I will get into that at a later date. Those who actually supported the insurrection on January 6th, apparently they can be arrested and charged for crimes against the American Constitution, if I'm understanding the American Constitution correctly, along with Donald Trump. So, you're probably wondering, what is the 15th Amendment? The 15th Amendment states, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The 15th Amendment granting African American men the right to vote was adopted. I already said that, didn't I? Reconstruction in 1867, I should say, following the American Civil War and the abolishment of slavery, the Republican-dominated U.S. Congress passed the first Recognition Act over the veto of President Andrew Johnson. The act divided the South into 5 military districts and outlined how new governments based on universal manhood suffrage were to be established. The adoption of the 15th Amendment in 1870, a politically mobilized African American community joined with white allies in the southern states to elect the Republican Party to power, which brought about radical changes across the South. By late 1870, all the former Confederate states had been readmitted to the Union, and most were controlled by the Republican Party thanks to the support of black voters. In the same year, Hiram Rhodes Wells, a Republican from Massachusetts, Mississippi, became the first African American to sit in the U.S. Congress. When he was elected by the U.S. Senate, although black Republicans never attained political office in proportion to their overwhelming electoral majority, Wells and a dozen other black men served in Congress during the Reconstruction. More than 600 served in the state legislature, and many more held local offices. Reconstruction ends in the late 1870s. The Southern Republican Party vanished with the end of Reconstruction, and the Southern state governments effectively nullified both the 14th Amendment, passed in 1868. It granted citizenship and all its privileges to African Americans, and the 15th Amendment stripping black citizens in the South the right to vote. In the ensuing decades, various discriminatory practices, including poll taxes and literacy tests, along with Jim Crow laws, intimidation and outright violence, were used to prevent African Americans from exercising their right to vote. Yeah. See, under the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on August 6, 1965, aimed to overcome all legal barriers at the state and local levels that denied African Americans their right to vote under the 15th Amendment. The Act banned the use of literacy tests, provided for federal oversight of voter registration in areas where less than 50% of the non-white population had not registered to vote, and authorized U.S. Attorney General to investigate the use of poll taxes in state and local elections. In 1964, the 24th Amendment made poll taxes illegal in federal elections. Poll taxes in state elections were banned in 1966 by the U.S. Supreme Court. So virtually all these Republicans who are signing these bills into law, they're about to be, how can I put this moderately and easily for them? Screwed over by the law itself. After the passage of the Voting Rights Act, state and local enforcement of the law was weak and it often was ignored outright, mainly in the South and in areas where the proportion of black citizens in the population was high and their vote threatened the political status quo. Still, the Voting Rights Acts of 1965 gave African American voters the legal means to challenge voting restrictions and vastly improved voter turnout. So, basically, what the Republicans are doing, they're actually trying to bring back all these laws that were null and voided in the 1960s. Well, we all know what happened in November 1963 upon the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Lyndon B. Johnson assumed the presidency. The presidential race in 1964, Johnson was officially elected on a landslide victory and used his mandate to push for legalization he believed would improve the American way of life, such as stronger voting rights law. During the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s, voting rights activists in the South were subject to various forms of mistreatment and violence. One event that outraged many Americans occurred on March 7, 1965, when peaceful participants in a Selma to Missouri march for voting rights were met by Alabama state troopers who attacked them with nightsticks, tear gas, and whips after they refused to turn back. Some protesters were severely beaten and bloodied, and others ran for their lives. The incident was captured on national television. Yeah. That is... well, how can I put this? Very bad for the law enforcement back then. Especially the Alabama State Police Force back then. Those troopers have to live with that. Considering that, under the First Amendment, protesting peacefully is not a crime. And yet, all these Republican governors and Senate Republicans and Congress Republicans are doing, they're trying to take away that right to protest peacefully. It's not the protesters' fault who are protesting peacefully that idiots from the domestic terrorist groups like Oath Keepers and such come along, see it, start and run up to them, start fighting, and everything else. Let's not forget that what Donald Trump did for a photo op. One that wasn't sanctioned and wasn't needed and wasn't actually approved by the church. He used tear gas on peaceful protesters. Excuse me. Which is a crime to do. Which means Donald Trump should have been arrested and charged, impeached, everything used against him. Republicans told that, hey, they don't want to find him guilty because they'll be in trouble. Well, hello, first impeachment, Donald Trump tweeted out, and I quote, "Your heads will be on a pike," end quote. Which means Donald Trump was actually threatening his own party to find him not guilty. Isn't that obstruction of law? Threatening your own party as well? I mean, that goes against the American Constitution, along with every laws. Along with laws that actually protect congressmen and women. Which means Donald Trump can be seen as a dictator. Wow. I wouldn't be surprised if the UN court actually files an arrest warrant for Donald Trump to actually be taken into the UN court system. Tried there for both impeachments. Tried for the insurrection. Tried for trying to be a dictator and stay in power because he sees Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin as people to buddy up with. As long as he's in power, he can buddy up with them. Say, look, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Yeah, what happened? Donald Trump believed Vladimir Putin over his own intelligence. Over America's own intelligence system. You do that in Australia, your political career goes bye-bye. Literally bye-bye. As in, you get arrested, charged, thrown into a black site, never to be heard from again. For, I think it's, 50 years or something? I'm not entirely sure. But back to the history of the 15th Amendment and such. Some protesters were severely bitten, but yeah. In the wake of the shocking incident, Johnson called for comprehensive voting rights legislation in the speech to a joint session of Congress on March 15th, 1965. The president outlined the devious ways in which election officials denied African American citizens the vote. Legitimacy tests, black people attempting to vote were often told by election officials that they had gotten the date, time, and polling place wrong, that they possessed insignificant literacy skills, and that they had filled out an application incorrectly. Black people whose population suffered a high rate of illiteracy due to centuries of recession and poverty often would be forced to take literacy tests, which they sometimes failed. Johnson also told Congress that voting officials, primarily in the southern states, had been known to force black voters to recite the entire Constitution or explain the most complex provisions of state laws, a task that most white voters would have been hard-pressed to accomplish. Okay, here's a challenge for the Republicans. Recite the entire Constitution with the amendments on camera. The Republican Party doesn't do it. Well, they're actually trying to sabotage your voting rights. In some cases, even black people with college degrees were turned away from the polls. It's like, oh yes, I have a college degree. I'm black. Let's just go vote. Sorry, sir, you can't vote. You're black. Your college degree means jack shit. Yeah. Black person, male or female, would be downhearted and say, why? Why? I have my college degree. I can do this. I can do this. I can recite this. I can show you that I'm not dumb. polling officials, sorry, laws are laws, bye. And then there's the Supreme Court. Voting rights bill was passed in the U.S. Senate by a 77, to 19 vote on May 26, 1965. After debating the bill for more than a month, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the bill by a vote of 333 to 85 on July 9th. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law on August 6, 1965, with Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders presented at the ceremony. Actually, I want to have a look at that. Oh, no photo? No. Actually, there might be a photo. Oh, that is actually a pretty good photo. Where's a better one? I know most of the photos are in black and white. I'm actually trying to find one that is in colour. But it is there. It's like, what is it? Number of, like, the first 4 lines and such, if you do a Google search. Back to the Act banned the use of literacy tests, provided for federal oversight of voting registration areas where less than 50% of non-white population had not registered to vote, and authorized U.S. Attorney General, 1964 24th Amendment made poll taxes illegal. Ooh. Let's see. Seeing as we are doing the... let's bring out the 24th Amendment, shall we? 24th Amendment of the United States Constitution forbids both Congress and the states from conducting the right to vote in federal elections on payment of a poll tax or other types of tax. Wow. I think we have enough evidence here for a lawsuit against the Republican Party. I don't think Ted Cruz is going to be happy about any of this either. Nor would the governor of Florida. Yes. There's enough evidence here to actually bring down the voting bills that have just been passed into law. Which means, there's going to be a nice little arrest warrants issued and such. Along with charges of, attacks on the American Constitution. Because that's what these voting bills are. That's what these bills are. They're to disenfranchise millions of voters in America. They're disenfranchising mail-in ballots, which, in Florida, 35% of the Republican base actually votes by mail. And the Republicans have just shot themselves in the foot. Actually, both feet. Which means... oh, this is actually pretty good. Here's what the, at the end of the voter turnout rise in the South. Since its passage, the Voting Rights Act has been amended to include such features as protection of voting rights for non-English speaking American citizens. Which means the Republican Party has virtually just hung themselves. Literally hung themselves. Here's an interesting little bit of facts as well. Voter turnout among black people increased from 6% in 1964 to 59% in 1969. let's not forget, a number of coloured people actually serve in the American Army, Australian Army, Europe Army, the UK Army, and such. Disenfranchising them actually means you're disenfranchising the whole army itself. As in, you're not supporting the troops correctly. Nor are you supporting the police. Because a number of coloured people are actually police officers, and one Karen went on a tirade against a Mexican police officer who was from Mexico. And I'm like, why are you going off at someone who's actually a police officer who can actually find you more instead of a citation? They can arrest you for discrimination. They can arrest you for virtually discrimination of race, colour, nationality. That Karen that was in that video, she better start running for her damn life. That's 4 things I counted that can be, well, put against her. So, yeah, virtually, the Republican Party has no ground to stand on with these new bills that they're signing into law. And I do mean this. They have no grounds to actually sign these bills into law because it can actually be challenged in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will actually strike those laws down. And then you have you probably would have the Supreme Court going, I want these people who sign these laws to be arrested, removed, blacklisted, and charged with attack on the American Constitution. Which means no holding office ever again. Public office, even an office of a company. They won't be able to hold that. Hell, they wouldn't even be able to get a CEO position. So, yeah. Those in America who actually do see this, or have seen this video and from virtually everywhere, go right ahead and speak with lawyers. Speak with lawyers about drafting lawsuits against these bills. Even the elderly can do this. Because it would mean that A, the Republicans shot themselves in both feet. The Republicans have no ground to stand on signing these bills, apart from Donald Trump's big lie, and we know that big lie is false and misleading information, along with those who are pushing the big lie, those who are supporting the big lie. Wow. Wouldn't that be 99.99% of the Republican Party being removed and blacklisted from holding public office? As in, they get no retirement fund, no nothing. Including those who are in the States who are actually in cahoots with this big lie and signing into power into law these bills. Anything else that you guys want? to know about. And I do mean anything. Look at the American Constitution. Type in the 15th American Constitution, 15th Amendment. American Constitution, 24th Amendment. Because, quite frankly, you can virtually just kill off the Republican Party with a lawsuit. Which means new Republicans would have to come in, but if they are actually getting pushed the big lie, don't vote for them. Simple as that. Vote for someone else. Just don't vote for those who are pushing the big lie. Even those who are Trumpian supporters, Trump supporters and such, they're pushing the big lie. They're all in on the conspiracy theory that, hey, Donald Trump is still president. Donald Trump is not president. He is not president at all right now. So, go and look up the information. The recount in Arizona. That's actually against federal law after an election. Because that recount was done, 4 times? Arizona's dangerous vote order includes a hunt for bamboo. There's no bamboo. All the ballots were printed off at home or sent out via mail, and there's no bamboo. There's conspiracy theory that millions of ballots came from China or Southeast Asia. Would that also include Australia too? Because if you're including Australia into that, wow, then we're gonna have a nice little international incident, aren't we? Which will be played out in the UN court. Because if it is played out in the UN court, the Republican Party members who are still pushing the big lie and such, well, let's face it, they won't have any grounds to stand on. Not to mention, Arizona audit postpones plans to interview voters that, raise Justice Department concerns. And yeah, that's from Cyber Ninjas, which is actually can be seen as a fraud cybersecurity company now. The CEO of Cyber Ninjas shut down his social media, but I don't think he's actually shut it down. Arizona Democrats GOP settle over 2020 ballot review, but audit will continue. No, the audit shouldn't continue. Here's something from 15 hours ago. Washington Security Estate Kim Wyman blasts Trump-inspired Arizona election audit. Justice Department takes an interest in Arizona's bonkers election audit. And yeah, it is actually bonkers. Because why would you actually try to look for bamboo and ballots to print it off at home or print it off at the voting department registry and then sent out to people? It's a bit weird, ain't it? It's a bit weird that would actually continue to happen. So, and again, sorry if this is long. My conclusion of all this: Republican Party dead in water, shot themselves in the foot, have no grounds to stand on, and can actually face the Supreme Court over the bills that they just signed into law. The governors can actually be removed from their office. A 98 or 99.99999% of Republicans can actually be removed from Congress and the Senate for attacks on the American Constitution, which they can actually be charged for. It doesn't take someone whose IQ is 160.9 to actually realize that what the Republican Party is doing in America is illegal, wrong, and unjustified by law. It's all unjustified. It's illegal. It's not correct. Those who sign the bills into law, they shouldn't have their voters respect or their voters vote anymore. So, in closing, bye-bye Republican Party. Bye. Bye. Wave bye-bye to the Republican Party. In the Supreme Court and UN Court, if it goes that far. And yeah, I will leave the links to both the 15th Amendment and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, along with the 24th Amendment of the American Constitution as well. So that everyone can actually see it and read it. Is this a burn of the Republican Party? That's up to you. And I do mean, that is up to you. Because I'm looking at Section 2 of the 24th Amendment. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Which means the Republican Party is screwed. And I do mean screwed. Because if you actually look at the amendments, there are a number of them. There are like, let's see, 24 amendments. Or such. Yeah, there's 24 amendments. So, take it what you will. Go over the information yourselves. See if the Republican Party would actually still stand a chance. of actually winning the 2022 results and such. Because I don't think they will be taking back the House and the Senate. Because they'll be too busy facing a lawsuit. Which means those who have pushed the big lie will be waving bye-bye to their position. So, I'll see you all next video.